fala ao professor John Pavlik. Please, professor.
Should I use this? Obrigado for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. I apologize that I don't speak much Portuguese. I got to practice obrigado quite a bit, but I apologize again. So thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I look forward to this conversation that we're going to have about such a critically important topic, because I think everyone knows that journalism here and around the world is in a period of massive disruption, driven by so many forces. Some of them are technological, some of them economic, some of them sociological, and there's so many things happening that are kind of changing the situation for journalism around the world. So this is a vitally important topic, and this conversation, if it contributes something to more understanding and moving forward with what we know about how journalism can develop in the years ahead, this is a wonderful opportunity. So thank you so much for your time and your attention tonight. So I'm going to talk about one aspect of this disruption and what I'm calling it the rise of virtuality. So it's this idea of, as we're moving along a continuum from how we experience the world directly toward a kind of a future in which we experience things more and more in a kind of a virtual sense. So that's the theme, and I'm going to look at how cyberjournalism, or journalism in total, is transforming through what I call experiential media. So experiential media we see them today, for example, in things like augmented reality and virtual reality, but it's in many other things as well. It's not just those kind of specialized forms. There are television, ultra-high definition systems, for example, that are slightly curved and give a sense of immersion and presence for the user. There are three-dimensional audio forms now that are very powerful spatial kinds of representations of sound. So it's many different ways that we are engaged. Which one do you think? This one? Which? I'll click on. No, I'm just not. So just do it on the arrow.
No.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, that'll work.
Just with this one.
I tried. I don't sure if it's the down or the up, or I was doing the right and the left. So, thank you. Obrigado. Keep practicing. All right. So, this idea of media that are immersive, that surround us, like the 360-degree photograph we saw at the beginning tonight, that are multisensory, that engage us in terms of sight, sound, even tactile kinds of experiences, and that are interactive. So the individual is being transformed from a kind of a passive audience to an active participant in the world of journalism and all of these experiential media. And some of the research that's breaking important ground has been done by Professor Milgram, who's outlined some important ideas about how virtuality transforms our engagement with media. And I would suggest that this transformation has 5 broad sets of implications for journalism, or cyberjournalism in particular, online journalism. So first, the methods by which journalists do their work, the way they do their reporting, how they put together a story, how they do their journalistic efforts, that's transforming as we have new kinds of tools. Second, the content, the stories we tell are in fact being transformed into a more experiential form. So the public begins to experience a story as something they participate in. Whether it's in a conversation or whether it's by engaging in these immersive, multisensory narratives. The structures of media, journalistic organizations, are transforming and becoming less hierarchical. They're flattening and more interconnected, more and more kind of collaborative forms. And fourth, the levels of engagement with the public are increasing. So these experiential forms give the public opportunities to be more involved in the journalism and the journalism discourse. And then finally, who is a journalist, or what is a cyberjournalist, is changing. And I'll talk about that a bit more in a few minutes, looking at the ways that data and algorithms and code are beginning to make important inroads into the journalistic process. So my focus tonight will be primarily on the new kinds of work methods, the evolving work methods of the cyberjournalist. So there are new kinds of tools for producing journalism, for doing the reporting, for creating the stories. The skill sets, both kind of the practical as well as the intellectual skill sets of the journalist, are evolving and need to evolve as we begin to think about how we tell stories changes and how we use things like the Internet of Things and a variety of new kinds of capabilities. There are broad implications for news gathering, for editing, for distribution, for the storytelling, and the kinds of forms of public engagement and how the nature of the journalist is changing. So reporters now are going out into the field to do the reporting with new kinds of tools. And illustrated here is a virtual reality camera developed with Google and GoPro. So this is a GoPro system that uses 16 cameras. It's a spherical system that captures ultra high definition video from an entire hemispherical view along with audio, and then all of those different 16 streams of video are seamed together so that the viewer can then enter into a 360-degree video and navigate around that scene. And so news organizations are starting to use these tools to do journalism, to do the reporting. Another camera, virtual reality camera that's been developed from Nokia is called the Ozo. And this one is designed a little bit differently, but again uses a combination of ultra high definition video cameras and microphones to capture video and spatial audio for then presentation to the public to create these immersive, interactive 360-degree video environments. But these are very expensive systems. They cost about $15,000 US for one of these camera systems. So for each reporter who might go out into the field, that's a large investment in technology. And they're very complicated to use and require a lot of training, and frequently multiple individuals have to go on an assignment because someone has to have substantial expertise in the use of the camera, and then the reporter has to be there to do the storytelling, so you really need a team of reporters. So an alternative that a lot of news organizations are starting to use is an option like this Ricoh Theta 360S camera, which only costs about $350. It doesn't require a complex technical setup. The journalist doesn't need a lot of advanced training. And the reporter can use this. It's about half the size of a smartphone. And it has a fisheye lens, which captures the wide-angle imagery. It's not as high a quality as the GoPro system or the Ozo system. So instead of being ultra high definition in 16 different cameras, this is ultra high def, but all distributed through one camera. So when if you create a stream of video, it's not as high a resolution as the alternative system, but it's also much less expensive, and it doesn't have the same frame rate. So the Ozo system or the Nokia or the Google Jump system has 120 frames per second, so it's very high frame rate, and you can capture motion very effectively. This only has about 15 frames per second, so it's much less bandwidth intensive though. So you can use it in situations where you may not have a lot of bandwidth, but you could stream live 360 video, or you can upload it directly to Facebook or to YouTube. And there are news organizations that are already beginning to experiment with using this as a way to capture, say, breaking news without requiring a lot of expensive technology. There are other tools as well. This is a picture that I took with my smartphone, running an off-the-shelf app to create what's called a photosphere. And this was inside of my brother-in-law is a surgeon. He lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where my daughter lives going to school at the university there. I was visiting, so I used my smartphone with his permission. I captured a 360 photograph of his living room. And if you put this image onto your and display it on like a Google Cardboard or a Samsung Gear headset, then you have a spherical view that you can look around, you can explore the space, all right? So, you capture this in a few seconds. Or augmented reality tools are being used. Now, Vice News, based in Brooklyn, New York, has been a pioneer in both virtual reality journalism as well as augmented reality. And about 3 years ago, they started experimenting with augmented reality to do live reporting during breaking news events. And one of the reporters, named Tim Pool, used the augmented reality system called Google Glass to report from a variety of venues around the world during protests. So he went to Istanbul, Turkey, and during protests there, reported live, and viewers accessed the stream from anywhere in the world as if they were present with him in the field. And they could hear his narration, they could hear the sounds from the scene, and they could look around at any point and see the view. And then he took this same technology, reported during the protests in Missouri, in Ferguson, Missouri, when the Black Lives Matter movement started there. So there are a number of organizations that have already been experimenting with how to use augmented reality, and others are rapidly adopting some of these new tools. Another kind of interesting tool that I haven't seen too many news organizations start using yet, though, are also available on a smartphone. One is a 3D photograph. So this one uses something called Fuse, it's a free app that's been developed, and you use your camera, you walk around the subject, and it renders it, and I'm sort of showing you different stages of the rendering of a photograph. It renders the geometry and converts the two-dimensional photograph shot while you're walking around the subject into a 3D photograph. And then you look at your phone or on a headset, but look on your phone and move your phone, and you can see around the object from any angle, above, below, or the side. And the journalist might use this to report stories in which seeing maybe it was an object that was part of an important news situation, where an event occurred. Maybe there was a violent confrontation or something like that. You could represent that in 3 dimensions for the user to explore that scene on their own and see what they might learn, and stimulate discussion. So there are a lot of these tools that are, and another one, I don't have a picture here to show you, but things like live photos, we were looking at some earlier today in some of our conversations, give the opportunity to give the user a way to explore a photograph in new ways. And if the photo might be used it might be a feature story, but it could be what we call hard news as well, to let the public access and engage that story, that image, in new ways. So for this conference, I prepared a paper. I'm not going to go through all the details of what's in the paper, but it's based on a series of 10 case studies in virtual reality reporting, primarily in the United States, but some international as well. So looking at one of the pioneers, the New York Times launched a virtual reality storytelling series a year ago in November. Now, they call it virtual reality, but really it's not full virtual reality. It's on that virtuality continuum. It's what we would call 360-degree motion video. USA Today, which, again, some of these we think of as newspapers, but really they're transforming. They're no longer really newspapers. They're news organizations. And they create stories and deliver those stories increasingly online. So they're part of cyberjournalism rather than a printed product. So they have a similar VR storytelling initiative, which again is more 360-degree video. The Wall Street Journal, they cover financial news, but also they've developed VR storytelling as a way to tell those stories differently. one of the pioneers, a smaller newspaper in the United States, but a very high quality one, the Des Moines Register, did a report as far back as 2014 that won an award. It was one of the first stories that was produced in which the user would experience a story on a headset. They used very early technology, and it covered sort of one big transformation happening in the United States is we're moving from historically lots of small farms. My family, my mother's family, they were farmers. Well, we're moving out of that era of lots of small farms to big agribusinesses, gigantic agricultural companies, and it's transforming how the farming industry works. And this is a story about how that was affecting a community in Iowa, a state in the middle of the United States. And then one of the real pioneers in this field, Noni de la Peña, has done a lot of important work, not only on 360 video, but into the realm of virtual reality. In fact, she had a very famous intern. He wasn't a famous intern at the time, but now he's very famous. His name was Palmer Luckey. He had been a journalism student who left journalism school, went on Kickstarter, proposed a project that became the Oculus Rift. He raised $2 million, and then Mark Zuckerberg bought his product for $2 billion, and now that's the Oculus Rift. So he was Noni de la Peña's intern. So sometimes professors can really put you on a great path. ABC News, which is coming out of the broadcast tradition, they've been using these same 360-degree video technologies. CNN, there's internationally, the Global Editors Network out of Paris, France, is really developing a lot of initiatives and innovation, especially in virtual reality storytelling. Vice, I mentioned Vice with Tim Pool and their augmented reality work. They're doing a lot in VR as well. And then there was an interesting collaboration 2 years ago between Frontline, an American media company, or nonprofit media organization, and The Guardian in the UK. And they did an interesting collaboration early on using 360 video reporting. So the Times, they introduced their sort of VR or 360 video journalism with a report in November of 2015 called The Displaced. And it was a report. The United Nations had just issued its report that showed that there were more refugees from crises, from world conflict, than there have been since World War II. There are 60 million refugees. And what the New York Times did is they went to 3 refugee camps, one in Syria, one in the Ukraine, and one in the Sudan. And they told a story of children in each of those camps, but they used virtual reality or 360 video to tell their stories and let the members of the public go virtually to that camp and see what life is like inside of that camp. And it was, a pioneering form of reporting, but it also raised some interesting and important ethical questions, because in journalism there's been sort of a tradition of avoiding scene reconstructions, to instead not try to kind of reinvent a virtual representation of what happened. But these technologies allow us to start recreating a scene. And so a lot of important questions to ask. One of the things that the reporter revealed was when they shot with a 360 camera, they would turn the camera on, then they would run out of the scene and hide, and then let the action kind of happen with the people in the refugee camp. And then they would go back in later on, get the camera, take the video, and see what they've got. Well, when we started working with this same technology, but a much earlier form, it was a 360 camera that a colleague of mine had invented in computer science. And it was just, very kind of low resolution version, nothing like these today. But what we did back in 1997, covering a story about a man who was killed by the police in New York, his name was Amadou Diallo, we instead, and we did one on, it was a protest in a parade where the Irish Lesbian Gay Organization was attempting to march in the New York City St. Patrick's Day parade. They'd prohibited, and they were subject to arrest. When I sent my students out in the field, they didn't try to hide from the camera. So if you look around the 360 scene, you can see the protesters and the police and the marchers of the parade, but you can also see the journalists who are my students. So our idea was simply, don't hide from the scene. Don't pretend that you're not really there. And instead, acknowledge the fact that you're there, admit that your presence might have some impact on there's no way to know. Your presence could have an impact. The camera might have an impact. Don't try to hide that and pretend it doesn't exist. But in the case of the displaced, and a lot of these efforts now, they're trying to pretend like there's no camera really there or there's no journalist there. And I'm not sure that that's really the wisest course in the long run. Something else that's happening, we're seeing more and more collaboration. So in many of these cases, journalists, news organizations are collaborating with partners. And a good example includes the work of the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, CNN, ABC. They've all partnered with various other organizations who have some sort of skill with some of these new technologies. So they partnered with the Toast Center at the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. The Washington Post has collaborated with, it's called Empathetic Media in Brooklyn, New York, and they have a new report using augmented reality that's just been released. I was downloading the app earlier to check this out on a case in Baltimore, Maryland, of a man named Freddie Gray, who is black. He was arrested by the police, and he was thrown in the back of the police truck, and then he was killed en route to the jail, and it became a huge controversy, protest, and now you can experience the story in augmented reality to give you more of a sense of what it would have been like from his point of view or from the other people's point of view. The Global Editors Network, also another pioneer that's doing a lot of collaborative work. So I see this as a vital part of using these experiential media, because frequently it requires a fair amount of technological skill, but also very good journalistic sense on how to do the journalism, how to do the reporting. The Des Moines Register-Guard, one of the things they did is create this story using an early prototype of the Oculus Rift. So the Oculus Rift has been in development for about 4 years, and they were the first to use it in journalism in 2014. The Guardian, working with PBS's Frontline, PBS is our public broadcaster in the United States, they worked together to create, again, it's more 360 video than full VR, but they produced a report that they published earlier this year called Solitary. And Solitary, one of the big problems we have in the United States is we have the largest prison population in the world. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it has a lot of racial bias built into to the criminal justice system. So they wanted, and in many cases, prisoners are put into solitary confinement for long periods of time, sometimes for months or even years. And there's a lot of debate about whether putting people in solitary confinement is really an ethical, a humane treatment, or whether it's even productive or counterproductive to the goal of the prison system. So what this report did is they went into a real solitary confinement cell and used real scenes to create a video that allows you to go virtually into a solitary confinement cell, and you hear the actual sounds of the door as it shuts, and you hear the sounds of the other inmates in solitary confinement and their cries and the voices, and it gives you a profound sense that you're really inside of there. I don't know how many of you have put on a VR headset with 3D audio, but it rapidly gives you a sense of you're in a separate place, and it can feel very real. And when you're put into solitary confinement, the story even tells you that you shouldn't spend more than maybe a minute or two in there, because it can have a profound effect on your emotional state. I mentioned Noni de la Peña. One of her reports was called Hunger, and what it did is it was premiered at the Sundance 2016 Film Festival, so earlier this year, and it told the story, or it tells the story of what it's like to be poor, homeless, and hungry on the streets of Los Angeles. And so it takes you into the world of someone who's really suffering in that circumstance. And so it tells that story, but allows the individual to experience it as if they're there. Now, you're not feeling real hunger pains, but you can get a sense of the rest of the experience. Collaboration, again, another example of what's happening. There's a new network called Riot, I think kind of implying the idea that, you know, something very exciting is happening. But their goal is to be a worldwide producer of 360-degree video reports on everything from natural disasters to the world's refugee crisis to climate change and everything else. And so they're using things like the Ricoh Theta 360 as well as other 360 video cameras to start doing reporting, which can then be used by many news media around the world. So there's a lot happening to build up new possibilities, sort of like an Associated Press or Reuters, but for the digital age. In fact, the AP is one of the pioneers in creating a lot of these reports themselves. So to kind of conclude and look to the implications of this, the early signs, there's a lot of need for research, but the early signs are that the public is engaging with these new forms of experiential media, including in journalism, but it's much bigger than just journalism. The New York Times has more than 1 million digital-only subscribers. And their most popular stories are some of the stories that are presented in experiential form, the 360 videos, things of that nature. And they often get the most comments from the public. And the younger parts, the millennials, are the ones who are in many ways least connected with traditional journalism, at least in the United States, but they're becoming the most connected with experiential media forms. And so it may be that this is a way to re-engage the next generation of citizens. But there are a lot of important ethical questions to consider. Privacy, maybe first and foremost, but also cybersecurity. But there are also health consequences. For example, when you're immersed in augmented or virtual reality, it can be an addictive kind of experience. It can also leave you physically feeling a little bit ill because there's something called VR sickness. So you kind of have to build up to it. There's also these ethical questions about is it the morally correct thing to do to recreate a scene where we don't know exactly what happened and we have to speculate a little bit. Is that potentially truthful, or will it misrepresent the truth? And of course, journalists won't be the only ones to use these tools. I was just reading today an article that just came out about how things like augmented reality could be misused to populate our spaces with false information or misinformation. And some of the strategies that are developed are things like strong encryption. And I got this message when I do a lot of research in international venues, including in the Middle East, and spent a lot of time in a little country called Qatar. It's on the Arabian Peninsula. It's right next to Saudi Arabia. And I was communicating via WhatsApp with some colleagues and with my wife, and it automatically came up with a message in yellow. Messages you send to this group are now secured with end-to-end encryption. So that means that if the government wants to read my messages, it's now encrypted, and it will be particularly difficult. It might be very important for journalists to consider using encryption because they may be doing stories that are very politically unpopular, and journalists are often very much under attack, both physically and legally, by governments in not just democracies, but any form of government. And my next to last slide, I want to play just a little clip because maybe you haven't experienced virtual reality, not just 360 video, but when you can have freedom of movement and you're immersed in a space that seems real. This is a journalist named Jeff Glor, who's a reporter for CBS television news in the United States, and he's doing a report from the Stanford University Virtual Reality Lab. And the professor who runs the lab is on the left, Jeff Glor is on the right, and he's in this laboratory, and he's going to be going into an experience where they're using this not for journalism, but in this case, it's as a therapy to teach people to overcome their fear of heights in this case. So we'll just see a little clip of him in this space, if it plays. Maybe plays. We tested it, but there we go. If you listen to his voice.
Good, very good. So what you just did, a lot of adults won't do that. If you're trying to teach someone to overcome their fears, in this case fear of heights, by slowly having them approach the pit, and then the next time you get over the plank. I want you to rotate this way. Okay, take a step forward. Oh. And this time what I want you to do is I want you to stop when you're halfway across.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, you actually don't have to do it if you don't want to, but this is the next step in the demo. So you know there's not a physical hole in this floor, right?
I do know, but as you said, it's you know it, but you don't know it.
All right, so I want you to go halfway across and stop when you're halfway across.
Wow.
Okay, stop.
Yeah.
Rotate 90 degrees to your left. Those are great reactions. We like to see people really feeling
I
this.
feel my legs.
So he's saying he feels his legs are shaking because it looks so real to him. And so where we're headed with a lot of this is, I think, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't care, but I think we're headed to a future in which some of these kinds of experiences will become indistinguishable from our physical world. And especially there are on the horizon systems that don't require a head-worn display. It's called a volumetric display that allows you to project a virtual world into a space around you that has apparently physically solid objects that are animated, that can talk, that you can interact with, and that appear completely real. So that's in the horizon in the labs. So finally, to conclude, put together this little figure that summarizes some of the implications. So cyberjournalism, I'm suggesting there are at least 4 important dimensions. There's how we produce the journalism, the reporting, the editing, the post-production work. There's the storytelling, in other words, the content, the stories that we tell about these issues. There's how we engage the public. And there's finally all the organizational, systemic issues. How do we make a business? How do we fund the media? All of the issues at that kind of organizational level. And then I've organized this into 2 dimensions of virtuality. One is the idea that there's a experiential adoption phase where this is, kind of we go back in time. Like if we go back in time to the 1990s or the 1980s or any time before, the tools that we had for production were 2-dimensional. The cameras, the microphones. We worked with manual editing. We used chemical darkrooms, things of that nature. Then as we move into the full experiential environment, so as we look to the future, looking forward 5 or 10 years, we have 3D cameras, we have 360 cameras, we have microphones that can capture 3-dimensional, spatially precise audio for playback. They're mobile, we have drones, we have GPS technology, and our Internet of Things is ubiquitous and networked. Similarly, the storytelling is being transformed from linear third-person narratives to interactive or non-linear first-person narratives so that we experience the story for ourselves. And the stories can be fluid, multidimensional, and often driven by data. The audience is changing from passive receivers in which kind of we're out there in an anonymous sea of people to an engaged public where we're interacting. I was just watching a stream on Twitter, watching simultaneously as you're watching the video, thousands of people posting comments in real time to each other and to the world. That's sort of looking to the future, maybe how journalism will be. Journalism will tell us stories and people will in real time be commenting and will be engaged. Now whether that will make for more enlightenment, I don't know. And then finally, the organizations are changing from very hierarchical, highly structured and human-driven to much more fluid, networked and collaborative organizations, but also algorithms are playing a huge role in the process. So there are already many products out there that do reporting, that take the data off of a stream and turn it into word narratives. So if you go on Forbes.com, if you see a story with the byline, narrative science, that was totally reported and written by a computer. If you read stories produced for the Associated Press business unit, They produce literally thousands of stories every quarter that are all reported by and written by computer. And this is just the beginning. There's so much more happening in that arena. So it's very challenging to the future of journalism and society, and how this will play out, I have no idea, but thank you for your attention. Obrigado.
Thank you very much for your lecture, Professor. Então, na sequência, né, como planejamos aqui, eu vou passar para alguns comentários em torno da fala do professor John Pavlik, né, retomando alguns pontos que ele menciona e outros que ele aprofunda um pouco mais no paper que deu origem à palestra. Então, o núcleo central da conferência do professor John Pavlik gira em torno de 5 grandes conjuntos de implicações que a realidade virtual e suas tecnologias correlatas trazem para o jornalismo. São elas: 1. A transformação no trabalho ou nos métodos de produção do ciberjornalismo. 2. O conteúdo das cibernotícias, ou, como diria o professor John Pavlik na manhã de hoje, não tem como mais falar em ciberjornalismo se ciberjornalismo é o jornalismo daqui para frente. 3. As estruturas e os sistemas organizacionais, incluindo o financiamento, a gestão e a regulação das organizações jornalísticas. 4. A natureza e o nível do engajamento do público com as notícias. E 5. Quem ou o que, isso é preciso frisar, numa grande provocação feita pelo professor John Pavlik, pode ser considerado um ciberjornalista. Para tanto, do ponto de vista teórico-conceitual, o professor volta-se ao conceito de contínuo virtual, cunhado por Paul Milgram e seus colegas pesquisadores. Esse contínuo, em nuances, né, ou na metáfora de um limpador de para-brisas, varia desde como nós, seres humanos, entendemos a realidade como concreta, até, na outra extremidade, a mais imersiva e interativa realidade virtual, ou que pode ser chamado de virtualidade. Entre os dois polos do contínuo estão várias formas de representação mediada do mundo real, tais como a realidade expandida, a realidade virtual, os vídeos em 360 graus e o áudio espacial. A virtualidade pode oferecer apresentações que parecem plenamente reais de mundos imaginados. Plenamente reais e mundos imaginados, como no exemplo que ele mostrou no vídeo aqui. Jornalistas, incluindo aqueles que atuam no âmbito do denominado no ciberjornalismo, jornalismo digital ou jornalismo online, estão explorando cada vez mais esse contínuo virtual para apurar e elaborar notícias. Entre as formas mais comuns de apropriação estão as fotos e os vídeos panorâmicos ou em 360 graus, bem como o uso de áudio espacial. Essas formas de virtualidade são permitidas pelo avanço da disponibilidade comercial de câmeras e microfones para capturas esféricas e geolocalizadas. Isso inclui câmeras de alta qualidade para a realidade virtual, com alta definição de imagens e vídeo em 360 graus, por exemplo, panorâmicas, omnidirecionais ou esféricas, como a Nokia Ozo, que o professor mostrou no início da palestra aqui, e o sistema Google Jump GoPro 16. Além disso, smartphones com sistemas Apple iPhone ou Samsung Android, né, bastante disseminados hoje, incluindo no Brasil, podem capturar e compartilhar fotografias esféricas em 360 graus, incluindo a captação de áudio e de conteúdo codificado com dados de geolocalização. Esses fatores são importantes na construção de notícias e narrativas. Eles sinalizam oportunidades para representar informações apuradas com precisão, o que constitui uma premissa clássica do jornalismo, bem como remete às ideias de propriedade intelectual e à proteção dos direitos de autoria e de autenticação. As técnicas de edição e de apresentação têm envolvido cada vez mais o uso de softwares dirigidos por algoritmos para mixar automaticamente fotos e vídeos omnidirecionais, ou seja, em todas as direções, incluindo seus metadados de geolocalização. Drones, equipados com tecnologias de captura de imagens em 360 graus, incrementam a capacidade para uma produção jornalística mais eficiente e efetiva. O que tem permitido o uso dessas ferramentas convergentes em ciberjornalismo, ou no jornalismo de modo geral, é o crescente patamar de consumo em tecnologias de realidade virtual. Assim, pode-se afirmar que a integração entre a inteligência artificial, os algoritmos e códigos computadorizados, as redes de sensores digitais de ubiquidade, como trabalhada na palestra de ontem pelo professor Eduardo Pelanda, as mídias sociais e o grande volume de dados acumulados, o chamado Big Data, está acelerando as transformações dos métodos de trabalho em ciberjornalismo. A metodologia de trabalho, né, do nosso conferencista, John Pavlik, para apresentar empiricamente, né, essas reflexões que ele fez no âmbito teórico, passa pelos métodos jornalísticos utilizados em 10 casos, né, tratados de forma bastante específica por ele aqui. As narrativas de realidade virtual do The New York Times, as narrativas de realidade virtual do The New USA Today, as narrativas de realidade virtual do The Wall Street Journal, o caso do Des Moines Register, cujo projeto Harvest of Change, de 2014, que ele mencionou, que eu não sabia, né, eu não tinha acompanhado no paper, mas na fala dele, envolve uma realidade muito próxima a gente, né, que são os pequenos agricultores sendo expulsos pelo agronegócio. Que esse caso, né, mencionado por ele, constitui um dos primeiros esforços da indústria de notícia em empregar vídeos em 360 graus para exibição em uma plataforma de realidade virtual. Os documentários em vídeo de 360 graus produzidos e exibidos no Sundance Institute, incluindo o trabalho em reportagem de vídeo 360 graus da jornalista Noni de la Penha, também mostrada ontem aqui na palestra do professor Denis Renaud. As reportagens de realidade virtual do ABC News, as transmissões de realidade virtual live streaming da CNN, a experiência de jornalismo internacional desenvolvidas pela Global Editors Network, que tem sido altamente engajada com a indústria internacional de tecnologias, incluindo grupos como Google e Facebook, o caso do jornalismo de realidade virtual do Vice e o caso das reportagens colaborativas em vídeo 360 graus do projeto colaborativo Frontline e do The Guardian. Todos esses casos são explorados por 3 razões centrais pelo professor, não estão por acaso. O papel de liderança que de cada organização jornalística mencionada, a circulação que eles possuem, a disponibilidade de seus métodos para a construção de narrativas em realidade virtual. Aí, então, passadas, né, a apresentação dos casos, feita pelo professor John Pavlik aqui, eu vou entrar propriamente nas conclusões e nos principais tópicos que ele apresenta a partir desses casos. Então, de maneira geral, a fala do professor John Pavlik apresenta inúmeras reflexões e provocações para a compreensão das transformações que estão alterando o jornalismo nessa segunda década do século XXI. Suas principais conclusões, todavia, podem ser sistematizadas da seguinte forma. As tarefas dos jornalistas nos cibermeios, ou nos meios de comunicação na internet, evoluem rapidamente em um ambiente onde a concepção de virtualidade tem influenciado a construção das notícias. Novas ferramentas de captação e de apuração noticiosa estão ganhando espaço rapidamente nas redações. Supõe-se que no futuro, talvez, os cyberreporters, ou repórteres, né, já que todos os repórteres serão tratados como no ambiente virtual, precisarão entrar na realidade virtual, isso é uma suposição, né, que ele perguntou, podemos concordar ou não, para poder apurar e captar certos tipos de notícia. E isso pode vir a ocorrer de forma muito cotidiana no futuro. No entanto, faz importante frisar, e essa é uma das grandes contribuições da fala do professor aqui, que existem preocupações e algumas questões bastante delicadas em jogo. Entende-se que há assuntos fundamentais que devem ser abordados por jornalistas e professores de jornalismo nesse início do século XXI. Um deles consiste no fato de que a gramática, e talvez seja essa a melhor forma mesmo de tradução, das novas formas narrativas ainda não está estabelecida, incluindo decisões sobre seleção de cenas, a posição das câmeras e o uso do formato esférico em 360 graus. Cada opção representa oportunidades narrativas únicas. Usuários podem, de modo variado, aproximar, inclinar, deslizar suas perspectivas, dependendo da resolução e da funcionalidade do software em uso. As imagens estereoscópicas podem resultar em profundidade no campo de visão. Sistemas avançados de realidade virtual podem redundar na capacidade dos usuários, literalmente ou virtualmente, moverem-se em um espaço de realidade virtual tridimensional. A realidade, quando mixada com a virtualidade, pode conceder ao usuário a capacidade de interação com objetos presentes naquele segundo espaço, o espaço virtual. Experiências recentes, né, em realidade virtual têm mostrado a receptividade do público no engajamento também no mundo físico. O caso do Pokémon GO, né, jogo utilizado, que tem sido bastante disseminado no Brasil, né, tem mostrado isso. Né, uma experiência de realidade virtual que leva que as pessoas também se engajem no espaço físico. Tanto é que vocês podem andar no Parque das Nações Indígenas no domingo qualquer. O professor John Pavlik caminhou pelo parque essa manhã, viu algumas capivaras, mas quem vai ao Parque das Nações Indígenas numa tarde de domingo pode ver, né, dezenas de adolescentes caminhando pelo parque, né, procurando os Pokémon. Ou Pokémons. Nesse sentido, lideranças entre jornalistas e professores de jornalismo precisam considerar o papel de envolvimento das mídias sociais na construção de um jornalismo de realidade virtual. Google, YouTube, Facebook, por exemplo, já suportam vídeos em 360 graus. Entretanto, em pleno 2016, o caso da transmissão streaming ao vivo de um policial atirando em um motorista negro em Minneapolis, nos Estados Unidos, remete a outras questões latentes. Tentativas de censura de conteúdo podem ganhar corpo. Aqui, outro ponto crucial destacado pelo professor John Pavlik. As organizações jornalísticas deveriam considerar cuidadosamente as consequências de colocar as decisões noticiosas na mão de terceiros, que podem optar pela censura ou por restrições prévias, especialmente quando estão em jogo assuntos controversos, para o público ou para patrocinadores, né, que estiverem envolvidos nas notícias em questão. Além disso, jornalistas profissionais e professores de jornalismo deveriam também considerar a hipótese de estudar cuidadosamente a natureza da edição de vídeo. Mixar fluxos de vídeos em 360 graus por meio de softwares e de algoritmos pode resultar em resultados muito eficientes. Porém, confiar cegamente nos algoritmos sem envolvimento humano pode resultar em profundos desafios éticos. Os bots, né, talvez essa seja não tem uma tradução específica para o tema, tem recebido uma importância crescente nas experiências jornalísticas em virtualidade. Um bot se refere a um ser automatizado, um algoritmo que habilita um agente virtual dotado de inteligência artificial a desempenhar uma variedade de funções. Parece coisa futurística, mas não é. Alguns agem interagindo automaticamente com usuários, outros podem assumir a produção de vídeos e o processo de distribuição, incluindo de vídeos em 360 graus. O caso mostrado pelo professor John Pavlik no próprio Facebook Messenger, aqui, se eu não me engano, em que você pode conversar com um agente virtual, né, ilustra bastante isso. Outro exemplo mencionado no paper do professor. O Tronc, uma reinvenção digital do Chicago Tribune Company, já tem articulado essa estratégia. A estratégia consiste em utilizar a automação para, de modo eficiente e com baixo custo, aumentar a produção e distribuição de notícias em vídeo, passando de algumas poucas num dia para milhares no mesmo dia. Entretanto, frisa-se novamente, os papéis da ética e dos julgamentos noticiosos dificilmente serão implementados por meio de algoritmos. Esse é um dos principais pontos, no meu ponto de vista, da fala aqui do professor. As plataformas e mídias sociais têm favorecido e encampado de modo especial os bots. Um deles é chamado Complex, mostrado aqui no exemplo dele. O professor John Pavlik apresenta em sua fala um exemplo de interação automatizada entre ele próprio e um bot. O robô, entre aspas, responde virtualmente e instantaneamente às perguntas do professor, o que consiste na sua função principal. O robô, explica um serviço básico que será oferecido e envia ao usuário real, no caso do nosso conferencista, um resumo diário de notícias relacionadas à mídia. Mas, além disso, se considerarmos que o newsfeed do Facebook pode ser considerado como conteúdo noticioso, então é justo dizer que o bot, né, traduzido no newsfeed, é também um grande novo amigo do usuário, no caso, nosso conferencista aqui. Por quê? O Complex envia regularmente mensagens personalizadas que muito provavelmente passariam no teste de Turing, que é o teste que mede a capacidade de uma máquina a exibir um comportamento inteligente equivalente ao de um ser humano. Eu não me lembro qual dos conferencistas, acho que foi o Cálito Costa, falou aqui, né, numa outra mesa, o nível de confiabilidade que o Google Translator, né, tem tido, foi o professor Eduardo Pelanda, em relação à tradução do mandarim para o inglês, que atinge 93% de confiabilidade. E isso mostra um potencial de auto-melhora, né, entre o algoritmo, mas também a partir da concepção humana ali. Então, o potencial de um bot é ainda maior quando se reconhece que ele pode se aprimorar em confiabilidade, complexidade e oferecer habilidades para customizar serviços de notícias. Certamente ocorrerão aperfeiçoamentos no potencial de marketing. Vejamos uma aplicação trazida pelo próprio conferencista no paper dele. O próprio newsfeed do Facebook, somente por si, representa potencialmente um conjunto de implicações muito significantes para o jornalismo. Ao utilizar uma combinação entre algoritmos e decisões humanas, o newsfeed do Facebook apresenta automaticamente, na interface de cada um dos seus 1,6 bilhão de usuários ao redor do mundo, uma atualização contínua e personalizada de temas, que é muito corriqueiro para a gente, mas é muito complexo, se a gente pensar com profundidade nisso. Esses itens incluem uma combinação de postagens pessoais de amigos, de familiares, com itens postados por organizações jornalísticas. O Facebook não tem revelado precisamente os algoritmos que utiliza, mas o relatório Trending Review Guidelines, recentemente postado online, indica, por exemplo, que o algoritmo da rede social rastreia os itens mais populares de pelo menos 10 maiores meios de comunicação do mundo, incluindo CNN, Fox News, The Guardian e The New York Times. Nesse cenário, ao refletir uma abordagem que contrasta, de certa forma, com os valores notícias tradicionais, tais diretrizes instruem os editores humanos do Facebook, entre aspas, a assumirem que cada tópico presente na rede social é um acontecimento no mundo real, até que se prove o contrário. No jornalismo clássico, a perspectiva provavelmente seria inversa, isto é, assumiria-se que tais tópicos postados, que podem ser oriundos de pseudo-eventos, ou de ações de marketing, de relações públicas, são falsos ou fabricados até que se prove o contrário. Vocês entenderam? Há uma mudança de perspectiva. Passa-se os pseudo-eventos postados no Facebook passam a ser compreendidos como algo real, até que se prove o contrário, e não o contrário, o que está por trás da deontologia jornalística clássica. Algo é falso até que eu verifique na realidade de que ele é verdadeiro. As implicações jornalísticas a partir dos new feeds dirigidos por algoritmos irão somente crescer com o avanço das mídias de experiência, conforme as fronteiras entre a realidade e virtualidade se tornarem cada vez mais porosas e menos precisas. No mais, a fala do professor John Pavlik aponta que as evidências iniciais do avanço da virtualidade no chamado jornalismo mainstream sugerem diversas implicações fundamentais no trabalho e nos métodos de produção do jornalismo ou do ciberjornalismo. Primeiramente, os próprios princípios básicos dos métodos jornalísticos convencionais, com a precisão, a apuração e a imparcialidade, que fazem parte da deontologia jornalística clássica, devem se manter, mas uma transformação significativa na metodologia de trabalho está em curso nas plataformas digitais. Segundo, as mudanças mais notáveis em tais métodos incluem o crescimento de câmeras e de microfones omnidirecionais, ou multidirecionais, para capturar e contextualizar a localização de eventos noticiosos. Tais ferramentas podem dar aos jornalistas importantes capacidades para apurar notícias, especialmente em tempos de crise, a exemplo das coberturas em meio de desastres naturais ou em meio a desastres produzidos pelos próprios seres humanos, que tem sido cada vez mais corriqueiro na contemporaneidade. Essas câmeras multidirecionais, especialmente quando acopladas a drones, entretanto, podem também atentar contra a privacidade dos cidadãos, especialmente contra a privacidade daqueles que nada têm a ver com as notícias que estão sendo apuradas. Imagine-se um jornalista utilizando um drone como ferramenta de captação, uma praça pública, por exemplo, e a pessoa que está passando por aí sem estar envolvida com a notícia vai ter sua privacidade bastante comprometida. E privacidade, embora em tempos de internet é algo um pouco old-fashioned, para os preceitos do jornalismo clássico, é algo bastante fundamental. Terceiro, a gramática das narrativas jornalísticas está mudando para formas menos estruturadas, ou seja, formas mais fluídas e não lineares que contemplam a perspectiva em primeira pessoa mais do que o ponto de vista da terceira pessoa. Finalmente, a produção da inteligência artificial, ou ao menos a automação via algoritmos e códigos computadorizados, tem resultado em um abalo sísmico, para além do simples modo como histórias, imagens e vídeos são gerados e distribuídos no jornalismo. Além disso, o impacto estrutural da mídia de experiência, que é o foco central da fala do professor Pavlik, está transformando a indústria de notícias, com a ideia de colaboração se tornando de modo corrente se tornando o modo corrente dos novos serviços de notícias. De outro lado, muitos governos também estão ampliando o uso de alguma dessas ferramentas para levar a cabo a vigilância dos jornalistas no ciberespaço, né, que é o outro lado da moeda apresentado pelo professor, principalmente nesse quadro final que ele coloca. Ele mostra as tendências, mas mostra também os riscos, né? Uma ferramenta digital importante para os jornalistas trabalharem com a ideia de experiência ou com novas formas de se reportar é ainda o WhatsApp. Explica-se. Trata-se particularmente, como ele disse aqui, de uma ferramenta importante para a comunicação internacional, sobretudo para a interlocução entre jornalistas e fontes que estão em zonas de conflito. O WhatsApp proporciona uma codificação ponto a ponto das mensagens, o que pode ser vital para jornalistas que precisam exercer a cautela e a atenção em relação a governos ou a outras formas de vigilância que geralmente são conduzidas clandestinamente. Assim, uma nova agenda para pesquisa em jornalismo a respeito dos modos de reportar e de construir as narrativas em realidade virtual se faz muito necessária neste momento. Conclui-se com a afirmação de que é fundamental aos pesquisadores, talvez em colaboração com os meios de comunicação, né, que estudem as consequências potencialmente profundas dessas alterações na prática do ciberjornalismo. As consequências em termos de potencialidade e novas potencialidades narrativas, mas também as consequências do ponto de vista ético e de abalo na deontologia jornalística tradicional. Tão fundamental quanto é que as notícias se voltem aos conteúdos dessas notícias e às estruturas organizacionais do ciberjornalismo e ao engajamento do público. Estudar também as estruturas organizacionais, né, do jornalismo em tempo de internet, como disse o professor Caio Túlio Costa ontem, é fundamental. Finalmente, né, desculpando-me aqui como mediador pelo eventual ritmo maçante dos meus comentários, gostaria de frisar que o mais importante aqui é a clareza e a importância das ideias colocadas com brilhantismo pelo professor John Pavlik para a compreensão das mudanças contemporâneas no jornalismo. Gostaria de agradecer uma vez mais a presença do professor John Pavlik aqui conosco e muito obrigado a todos. Um dos valores basilares do jornalismo no século XX é a objetividade, que vem sendo contestada principalmente nos estudos da imagem. É possível pensar em objetividade nas narrativas em realidade virtual? Eu já traduzi rapidamente aqui o professor Pavlik, o que ele pode dizer.
Obrigado. And that's an excellent question, and one that is very complicated, I think. The issue of objectivity starts with what do we mean by objectivity, and we might all have a different definition, but I would suggest that at least one of the dimensions of objectivity is that we examine what we think is the truthfulness, the facts of whatever happened from a neutral point of view, that we're not trying to judge the value of one a fact over another, or what one person's testimony is over another. We're trying to give them, open consideration. And then the journalist takes all of that and tries to present that in an impartial way that's independent, that's not controlled by some particular interests. So that's sort of the idea. One of the problems of traditional journalism, traditional storytelling, is in most mainstream media, they give one story. And so you read through it, you watch it, you hear it, you get one story. There may be a few different voices, but you're basically getting one story. And journalism, other than during live events, journalism is always about the past. And no one knows the truth. It's impossible to know the truth, if there is such a thing. And so we're always trying to reconstruct it to the best that we can. So one of the potential values, if I'm talking too long, if I should stop, let me know. No. Okay, one of the potential values of these new forms of storytelling is that we can give different perspectives. So very simply, just to illustrate, the reality that I have from where I sit is necessarily different than the reality that you have from where you sit. It's just, there's maybe one reality, but we each see it somewhat differently, all right? And let's just take the case of, I mentioned empathetic media. I was looking at their app. One of their apps is called ARC, Augmented Reality Content. And they have two stories there at first that I want to explore more closely, but they're intriguing from the point of view of your question. One is the Freddie Gray arrest, done collaboratively with the Washington Post. And so, you know, a legitimate news organization that we respect doing objective journalism. But now they can tell that story from different points of view. They have another one, Peace in Colombia. So I happen to have been in Colombia at the time when the original peace agreement was announced in June, and then I was, you know, saddened to see that it fell apart, you know, last week. But then again today, the president of Colombia, President Santos, won the Nobel Prize for Peace, so they're not giving up. Well, that's a story. Hard to know what's the objective truth. You may have the point of view of the guerrillas. You might have the point of view of the government. You might have the point of view of a citizen. I mean, and now we can tell each of those stories. And there was a really good example a couple of years ago in an interactive documentary about the earthquake in Haiti a few years ago, which unfortunately was just hit by this horrible hurricane. So the interactive documentary lets you go through the story from 3 different points of view, but all the same objective facts. One is you go through it as an aid worker. One, you go through it as a journalist doing a story, trying to get the story. And you have to make decisions, like what word do you use to describe the survivors? Do you use the word that they were looting, or do you use the word that they were scavenging for supplies to, you know, you have to make those kind of choices. And then a third as a survivor of the earthquake and your point of view. So that's, I think, how we explore the idea of objectivity in journalism. Now we can actually give people the same facts, objective facts, if you will, but from different points of view. And then the audience can maybe, or the user, the public can start to draw their own conclusions. So the journalist doesn't necessarily have to keep drawing the conclusions for you.
Thank you, Professor. Eu vou tentar sistematizar a resposta, mas passa, acima de tudo, pela ideia pela compreensão do professor Pavlik, que a ideia de objetividade é uma ideia extremamente subjetiva. O que é objetividade? Né? Qual é a dimensão, né, que as pessoas têm, até que ponto aquilo é objetivo? No que você julga objetivo, o que você julga real, ou o que você julga imparcial, né, que tem sido vinculado no jornalismo à ideia de testemunhar, né, de estar. Mas a questão que ele coloca, né, que ele problematiza, é que o que ele chama de mídia mainstream, jornalismo mainstream, apresenta uma perspectiva, né, apresenta um ponto de vista e pode utilizar diferentes vozes, né, principalmente a partir de fontes, mas de modo geral apresenta uma perspectiva. E essa nova maneira de fazer jornalismo, vamos dizer assim, poderia, de certo modo, apresentar outras perspectivas, outros pontos de vista, né, a partir de exemplos que ele menciona aqui, porque não necessariamente deve-se compreender que o jornalista precisa me dizer, né, qual é a perspectiva que eu devo adotar. Né? Não sei se é bem isso, mas sistematiza um pouco aqui. Embora essa questão já venha sendo colocada, aí eu vou, né, como mediador, vou mencionar desde do New Journalist, como o Gay Talese por exemplo, escreve o livro Os Eleitos, né, eu não sei o nome o título original em inglês dele, que em cada capítulo ele está na perspectiva de um personagem. Uma hora ele está narrando. Os Eleitos é um livro-reportagem que fala sobre a história dos jovens que estão se preparando para se tornar astronautas no período da guerra espacial, da disputa espacial. E num capítulo ele está na cabeça de um astronauta, no outro capítulo ele está na cabeça da esposa do astronauta, no outro capítulo ele está de um outro, e por aí vai. Então, eu tenho a impressão que a ideia da realidade virtual mais potencializa, né, questões que vêm sendo problematizadas no jornalismo há tempo. Mas também quem sou eu para colocar aqui o meu ponto de vista. Aí o professor Pavlik também mencionou, né, um caso que ele vivenciou na Colômbia recentemente, quando ele acompanhou em Bogotá o caso da negociação pelo acordo de paz, né, e mostrou aqui uma história que como ela pode ser contada de diferentes perspectivas.